to get steeper and steeper. The ascent is already steep, it's going to get steeper, and then the descent into these times that I've often been speaking about is going to be swift, it's going to be difficult, and therefore the people who know their God, who want to be strong and do mighty exploits in his name, need to also accept that the way they are now is not sufficient. It is not sufficient to keep saying, I'm trying, I'm trying. At some point, the hard nut of difficulty, whether it's wrestling with sin, whether it's wrestling with unbelief, whether it's wrestling with laziness, with sloth, with being attacked by witchcraft and demons and saying, I can't read my Bible, I'm falling asleep. At some point, that hard outer shell is going to have to break in order for people to be able to access true dynamic spiritual power that will be able to carry them through the times that are coming. And so Beast System is going to cover everything along the gamut, from more human and understanding things like, how is the government structure of the nations going to change? How are the leaders of the nations going to change? How are nations going to get into this thing called the beast system? Will countries just be told by some kind of global manifesto, now we've reached beast system time, now it's time for everyone to switch over like daylight savings from standard time to daylight savings time? All nations, you'll be switching over to the beast system. Not at all. In fact, a lot of what you're watching on the news now is how nations are going to enter the beast system. Just the way the baby comes into this world, a baby comes into this world with a lot of pain, with a lot of pressure, with a lot of people gathered around saying a lot of things. There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of anxiety and worry, so that the baby doesn't come into distress, so that the mother doesn't come into distress. There's noise, there's activity, there's a lot going on at a birth. In the same way, the upheavals that we have been witnessing across Latin America, across Asia, across Africa, right here in the United States, even in Europe, as they've been having snap elections and putting this person down and chasing that person off their seat, and this place has a coup and that place has an uprising, and this place is being bombed and the president has run and tried to get asylum in another country. As these things are happening, this is what the Bible called distress of nations, distress of nations. This is prophesied in Matthew 24. And so as these things are happening, the nations are actually going through their birth pains. And these birth pains are how many, many changes will be introduced into our various countries. It's going to happen through wars. It's going to happen through conflicts, internal conflicts and conflicts between nations. Is going to happen because of coup, internal unrest that will lead to government saying, in order for us not to have this kind of unrest anymore, in order for this and that not to happen anymore, we're making this law and we're putting these rules into place. If you are in your country and you're starting to see a lot of playing around with the legislation, the parliament or the government or what have you are starting to gather more and more to say, we're looking at changes either to the Constitution, which is the highest form of change that a nation can undergo, to have their constitutional document rewritten, revisited, revised, parts of it struck, parts of it amended, parts of it changed, parts of it nullified and removed altogether. When you start to see nations changing the structure, the guidelines that govern that nation, then you should know, especially what type of changes are happening. Are the changes more liberal, but liberal in an unrighteous and unholy fashion? Is pedophilia being legalized? Is the law on pedophilia being softened? Is bestiality being considered? Is the age of consent being lowered, which means that children will be more accessible to adults as sexual partners? Is your nation considering legalizing abortion? Is your nation considering legalizing homosexuality? That type of thing lets you know that even though the laws are softening, they're softening towards immorality, they're softening towards unrighteousness, and that is not what you're looking for. That is how you know that the permissive doctrines of the end times, Satan ruling as a lord, Satan sitting in the midst of men, dictating how we ought to live. And that will definitely sweep us far away from the righteous standard that is Christ. That is how you know that the beast system is creeping in. So you're looking at governance, you're looking at the rise of technology. What is your country doing when it comes to apps in particular? Places like Japan, Korea, China, these nations are heavily dependent on the app culture. They have an app for everything: translator app, money app, train app, all sorts of different apps, apps to pay bills, apps to interact, even apps to express your sexuality with robots and things like that. What is your country doing with technology? Is your country a country that was previously not as developed, and now your nation is suddenly starting to have a fourth industrial renaissance, a fourth industrial revolution, rushing headlong into using apps, relying on apps, introducing the QR code and this and that, introducing a new type of ID, introducing a new type of birth number? All people born after this time will be receiving this type of new, updated, modern identification. It's the beast system. That is what it's going to look like. It doesn't matter how populous your country is, like India. It doesn't matter how small your country is, like Fiji. If these things are being discussed at the national level and you're starting to see it pop up, especially with a lot of marketing. I've spoken here that that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to use. They're going to use a lot of marketing to familiarize the beast system to people. And so if your nation is starting to do that, understand that is because they need to number all the people. They need to number all the people like cattle so that they can know every single soul that is in the country. Even if you're only going to be in the country for 6 months, they're going to introduce new ways to track human movement. That is because the beast system is all about monitoring and control. They don't want any person to slip through the cracks, through the gaps. They don't want anyone to be a shadow. Everyone has to be a full profile, as in what is your name, your birthday, basic information that they have on us. But then they're going to go that step beyond, where it's not just about your basic profile and your basic data, like where do you live, what's your job, who are your parents, and everything. They're going to start integrating things that usually we have control over, like our social preferences. Where do we like to go? How do we like to spend the money that we make? Who do we prefer to spend time with? What do we enjoy as entertainment? When we travel, where will we go? How long will we stay? Are we the traveling type, or do we spend most of our time at home? Do we eat out more, or do we eat at home? This type of information is invaluable to the beast system because it creates a profile on the individual. When the individual has a fuller profile, meaning that they know what kind of clothing you prefer to buy and what your dating habits are like. Do you date organically? Can they not find any past boyfriends? Or can they find your name on every single social hookup and sex app and things like that? It gives them invaluable metadata that allows them to electronically know who you are. And when people know who you are, when people in power know who you are, it becomes very easy for them to get in your head. It becomes very easy for them to be able to exert control on you, blackmail on you, to also be able to dangle bait in front of you, because they already know what you like, they know what you're prone to, and they're able to better predict your choices. That will allow them to even more fine-tune means of control, means of coercion. Does this person have children? Okay, we can threaten the child. We can drop a few comments into the conversation that will let them know that their child could be in danger if they don't do this, if they don't do that. So basically, have an understanding that the things that you've been watching on TV all your life are going to become real. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this and just pondering on it knowing that I have to prepare to come and present it to a very, very, very large group of people. Are you really ready to inhabit the world that you accept on TV?